You know what keeps me up some nights? It's thinking about all the people who almost reached out, but didn't. The ones who had your name pulled up on their screen, finger hovering over the call button, and then something stopped them. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was just the weight of everything that's been left unsaid for too long. But I want you to hear something today that might change how you see those silent moments. Because what looks like silence from them might actually be God working in the waiting. I've been walking with people through their hardest seasons for years now, and I've noticed something that broke my heart open. We spend so much time wondering why people don't reach out, why they don't call, why they don't say what we hope they're feeling. And we make it mean something about our worth. We make it mean we weren't important enough, weren't loved enough, weren't worth the effort of a simple phone call. But what if I told you that sometimes the silence isn't rejection at all? What if the person you're waiting to hear from is fighting a battle you can't see, wrestling with things that have nothing to do with how much you matter to them? Before we go any further, if this is landing somewhere deep in your spirit, would you take a second to hit that like button and subscribe? Because I believe these words found you for a reason, and I don't want you to miss what's coming next. There's a story in the book of Luke that I can't stop thinking about lately. It's about the father who watched his son walk away and then spent every single day after that looking down the road, hoping to see him come home. The Bible says in Luke 15:20 that while the son was still a long way off, his father saw him. Do you know what that tells me? It tells me that father had been watching, had been waiting, had been hoping every single day. He didn't give up on that love even when the silence stretched on and on. And I wonder if you're like that son right now, believing you're too far gone, too much has happened, too much time has passed for someone to still care about you. But baby, listen to me when I say this. Distance doesn't determine devotion, and silence doesn't mean the love stopped. Sometimes people hold back because they're afraid of what they'll say if they finally let it all out. Sometimes they don't call because they know one conversation won't be enough to hold everything they're feeling. I've sat with people who confessed they typed and deleted 100 messages, who drove past someone's house just to feel close, but couldn't knock on the door. Not because the love wasn't there, but because it was so big they didn't know how to contain it in words. And maybe that's where you are right now. Maybe you're the one who almost called last night. Maybe you had someone's name on your heart so heavy you could barely breathe, and you wanted to reach out, but something held you back. If that's you, I need you to know something. That hesitation you're feeling isn't always fear or pride. Sometimes it's wisdom waiting for the right moment. Because God knows there's a difference between forcing a conversation and allowing one to unfold in His perfect timing. Ecclesiastes 3:7 reminds us there's a time to be silent and a time to speak. And trusting that rhythm, that divine timing, is one of the hardest acts of faith we'll ever practice. But here's what I've learned sitting in rooms with people whose hearts are breaking from the waiting. The people who truly matter, the ones whose presence or absence shakes something in your soul, they're still carrying you, even in the silence. Your name still comes up in their prayers, in their late-night thoughts, in the moments when they're alone and the walls come down. Just because you haven't heard from them doesn't mean you've been forgotten. It might mean they're learning how to love you better, how to show up for you in a way that's healthier than before. It might mean they're healing from something so they don't bring their brokenness into your peace. I know it's hard to trust that when your phone stays quiet, when the days turn into weeks and the weeks turn into months. I know you've probably rehearsed what you'd say if they finally reached out, practiced how you'd respond, imagined every version of that conversation. But what if instead of waiting for them to make the first move, you started believing that you're worthy of love and connection whether they call or not? What if your value isn't determined by who reaches out, but by the unchanging truth of who you are in God's eyes? Because Psalm 139 tells us that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, that God's thoughts towards us outnumber the grains of sand. That means on the days when no one calls, when no one texts, when you feel invisible to the world, you are still seen, still known, still precious beyond measure to the one who created you. And I think that's the shift that has to happen in our hearts. We can't keep giving people the power to define our worth by their presence or absence. We can't keep making their silence mean something about our value. You are not too much. You are not too broken. You are not too far gone to be loved fully and completely. The right people will find their way to you when the time is right, and until then, you're being prepared for something better than what you lost. I've watched people torture themselves trying to figure out why someone didn't call, didn't show up, didn't choose them. They replay every conversation, analyze every interaction, search for the moment it all fell apart. And baby, I've been there too. I know that spiral. I know how it feels to wonder if you said the wrong thing, or loved too hard, or scared someone away by being yourself. But what I've learned through my own seasons of silence is this. If someone truly wants to be in your life, nothing will stop them from finding a way. And if they don't, nothing you do or say will make them stay. That's not rejection, that's redirection. That's God closing a door because He has something better waiting for you on the other side. Romans 8:28 promises us that all things work together for good for those who love God, for those who are called according to His purpose. That includes the calls that didn't come, the messages that were never sent, the relationships that didn't work out the way you hoped. God is weaving all of it into something beautiful, even when it feels like your heart is being torn apart. I want to talk for a minute to the person who's been blaming themselves for someone else's silence. The one who thinks if they had just been different, better, more enough, that person would have stayed. You need to hear this clearly. You are not responsible for someone else's inability to see your worth. You are not required to shrink yourself, dim your light, or become less than who you are to make someone comfortable enough to love you. The right people won't be intimidated by your growth. They'll cheer you on. And anyone who can't handle you at your fullest, most authentic self, they're not your people. Let them go with love. Let them go with grace, but let them go. Because holding on to someone who doesn't want to be held is like trying to grow a garden in soil that refuses to nurture the seeds. You'll exhaust yourself trying to make something bloom that was never meant to take root there. And meanwhile, there's fertile ground waiting for you somewhere else, a place where you won't have to fight so hard just to be chosen. Jesus said in John 10:10 that He came so we might have life and have it abundantly. Abundant life doesn't mean begging people to stay, doesn't mean convincing anyone you're worthy of their time and attention. Abundant life means knowing you're loved so deeply by God that human rejection can't shake your foundation. It means walking in such confidence in your identity that you're not afraid to be alone while you wait for the right connections. Now, I know some of you are sitting with a specific person on your heart right now. Someone you wish would call, someone you're hoping might reach out. Someone whose absence has left a hole you don't know how to fill. And I'm not going to tell you to stop caring, because love doesn't work like that. Your heart doesn't stop hoping just because someone walked away. But I am going to tell you this. While you're waiting, while you're wondering, while you're hoping they'll come around, don't put your life on pause. Don't stop growing, don't stop healing, don't stop moving forward just because they're not there to witness it. Because here's the truth that took me years to understand. Sometimes people come back into our lives and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they realize what they lost and they try to make it right, and sometimes they never do. But either way, you have to build a life that isn't dependent on their return. You have to create joy and peace and purpose that stands on its own, so that if they do come back, they're adding to something beautiful instead of a desperate void. Philippians 4:19 tells us that God will supply all our needs according to His riches in glory. Not according to who texts us back, not according to who remembers we exist, but according to His limitless abundance. That means you're going to be okay whether they call or not. You're going to heal, you're going to grow, you're going to find your way forward even in the silence. I also want to speak to something I see happening so often in this season. People are so afraid of vulnerability, so afraid of being hurt again, that they've built walls so high no one can get in. They keep people at arm's length, never fully letting anyone see the real them, never risking their heart because they're still recovering from the last time it got broken. And listen, I understand that, I truly do, but you can't experience real connection from behind a wall. You can't receive the love you're longing for if you won't let anyone close enough to give it. At some point, you have to decide that being loved is worth the risk of being hurt. You have to choose to trust again, even though there are no guarantees. Because the alternative is a life of safety, but also a life of loneliness, and I don't believe that's what God has for you. 1 John 4:18 tells us that perfect love casts out fear. And while we'll never experience perfect love from another human, we can let God's perfect love for us be the foundation that makes us brave enough to try again. When you know you're held by a love that will never leave you or forsake you, human rejection loses some of its power. It still hurts, I'm not saying it doesn't, but it can't destroy you anymore. Now, I want to shift gears for a moment and talk about what it means to be the person who almost called. Because maybe you're reading this and you're realizing you're the one who's been silent, the one who's been holding back, the one whose name is on someone else's heart while they're wondering why you haven't reached out. And maybe you have good reasons, maybe you're protecting yourself, maybe you're working through your own stuff and you're not ready yet. That's okay, you're allowed to take the time you need. But I want to ask you gently, something you might need to sit with for a while. Are you staying silent because you genuinely need space, or are you staying silent because you're afraid? Are you protecting yourself from real harm, or are you protecting yourself from vulnerability? Because there's a difference, and only you know which one it is.